Chosen one, God said, we need to talk today, and before fear rises in you, hear the tone of his voice correctly. This is not punishment. This is not rejection. This is not heaven calling you into a room to shame you. This is mercy interrupting the noise before you take another step in the wrong direction. You have been asking for clarity, but avoiding stillness. You have been asking for a sign, but ignoring the correction inside the sign. You have been asking God to open a door, while still holding the handle of one he already told you to release. That is why this conversation matters. God wants to talk about the delay you misunderstood, the distraction that has been draining your calling, and the gift inside you that has not died, but has gone dormant. There is a difference. Dead things do not respond. Dormant things wake up when the right conditions return. So stay with this, because what God wants to say today may explain the silence, the closed doors, the repeated patterns, and the strange feeling that your life is being prepared for something you cannot fully see yet. And I need you to understand something before we go deeper. God is not speaking to the surface version of you. He is not speaking to the version that knows how to smile while feeling heavy. He is not speaking to the version that tells everyone, I am fine, while quietly wondering why your soul feels so tired. He is speaking to the part of you that still knows there is more. The part of you that has not stopped believing completely. The part of you that still listens for him in the quiet. The part of you that gets tired of pretending life is normal when your spirit keeps feeling pulled towards something deeper. This is why the word today matters. Not because God is rushing you in fear, but because there are moments when heaven gives a person a window to hear, a window to surrender, a window to stop negotiating with what they already know. And for the chosen one who can feel this in their chest right now, this is one of those windows. Stay with this until the end, because there are a few things you need to receive clearly. You will understand why the delay was not always denial. You will see how distraction has been stealing more from you than time. You will recognize the hidden reasons certain doors closed, why certain people suddenly felt heavy to be around, and why the gift inside you may feel quiet, but not gone. Most importantly, you will be given a way to respond to God without panic, without shame, and without needing the whole map before you give him your next yes. Because this is not just a message to comfort you, this is a message to align you. Look at your life lately, not with fear, but with honesty. The same lesson keeps returning, the same feeling keeps rising, the same kind of situation keeps circling back, wearing a different face but carrying the same message. You thought it was just life being difficult. You thought it was just bad timing. You thought maybe you were too sensitive, too tired, too confused, or too far behind. But what if the pattern was not there to punish you? What if the pattern was there because God was trying to get your attention without having to break you? There are signs that do not arrive with thunder. Sometimes they arrive as a conversation that suddenly feels empty. Sometimes they arrive as a door that almost opens, then pauses. Sometimes they arrive as a relationship that used to feel safe, but now feels strangely draining. Sometimes they arrive as a deep discomfort in places you used to tolerate. Sometimes they arrive as a quiet ache that says, I cannot keep living like this. That ache is not random. That discomfort is not random. That repeated lesson is not random. Chosen one. Your life has been speaking before this moment arrived. The closed door was speaking. The delay was speaking. The exhaustion was speaking. The sudden distance between you and certain people was speaking. Even your inability to enjoy what used to distract you was speaking. God has been having a conversation with you through patterns. And this is where you must be careful. Because if you only look at the surface, you will call everything an attack. You will call every delay rejection. You will call every ending loss. You will call every quiet season abandonment. But if you listen deeper, you may realize that some things were not removed because you failed. Some things were removed because they could not enter the next room with you. Some doors did not close because God was against you. They closed because the room behind them was too small for who you are becoming. Some people did not drift because you were unlovable. They drifted because the version of you they knew is not the version God is restoring. Some plans did not work because you lacked ability. They paused because your foundation was still being strengthened in places no one else could see. This is the first thing God wants to talk about. What you keep calling delay. Chosen one, not every delay is denial, and not every waiting season means heaven is silent. Sometimes delay is protection wearing a disguise. Sometimes delay is preparation that feels like emptiness. Sometimes delay is God refusing to let you enter a room before your inner structure can carry the weight of that room. You wanted the door to open faster. God wanted you to be strong enough not to lose yourself once it opened. You wanted the answer to arrive now. God wanted your heart to stop depending on the answer for peace. You wanted certain people to recognize you. God wanted you to become secure before recognition arrived, so their approval would not become your prison. This is not easy to hear, but it is healing when you let it land. There are blessings that require capacity. There are assignments that require maturity. There are rooms that require discernment. There are open doors that can become dangerous if the person walking through them is still controlled by fear, rejection, and the need to be understood by everyone. God is not just preparing what is coming. He is preparing the one who has to carry it. Think about Joseph. He had a dream before he had the character to stand in the palace. He had a promise before he had the position. He had a glimpse before he had the government. And between the dream and the fulfillment, there was a pit, a betrayal, a false accusation, and a prison. To the outside eye, it looked like delay. But in the hidden places, God was building the man who could survive the blessing without becoming corrupted by it. This is why you cannot judge your life only by what has not happened yet. Just because it has not opened does not mean it is over. Just because it has taken time does not mean God forgot. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean there is no movement. Some of the most important work God has ever done in you happened in seasons where nothing looked impressive. You were learning how to be faithful when nobody clapped. You were learning how to pray when the answer did not come quickly. You were learning how to release people without becoming bitter. You were learning how to survive misunderstanding without turning cold. You were learning how to keep your heart soft in a world that kept giving you reasons to harden it. That was not wasted time. That was formation. But delay is only the first part of the conversation, because God also wants to talk about what has been draining your attention. And this may be the part that hits closer than you expected. Chosen one, distraction is not always loud. It is not always entertainment. It is not always obvious. Sometimes distraction looks like constantly checking on people who never check on your spirit. Sometimes distraction looks like explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes distraction looks like carrying emotional weight that God never assigned to your hands. Sometimes distraction looks responsible from the outside, but spiritually it is draining the oil you need for your calling. You have been available to too much. Available to arguments that do not produce peace. Available to conversations that pull you back into old versions of yourself. Available to guilt that makes you answer every demand. Available to fear that tells you, if you stop holding everything together, everything will fall apart. But God is asking you a serious question today. Who told you that being chosen means being endlessly accessible? Who told you that love requires you to abandon your assignment? Who told you that protecting your peace is selfish? Who told you that every voice deserves a seat inside your spirit? There are things that have been taking your focus, and because they did not look sinful or dramatic, you did not recognize them as distractions. But anything that keeps pulling you away from obedience deserves to be examined. Anything that keeps you reactive deserves to be questioned. Anything that keeps your mind so loud that you cannot hear the quiet instruction of God is not harmless. This is why you have felt pulled towards stillness. This is why certain environments feel louder than they used to. This is why some conversations leave you tired in a way sleep does not fix. This is why you can be surrounded by noise and still feel like your spirit is asking for silence. God is not trying to make your life smaller. He is trying to make your focus cleaner, because the next season will require a different kind of attention. Not anxious attention, not scattered attention, not attention divided between your calling and everyone else's expectations. A consecrated attention, a steady attention, a listening attention, the kind of attention that can receive a whisper and obey it before the crowd understands it. And this is where the conversation begins to go deeper, because under the delay and under the distraction, there is something else God wants to address. The gift, the part of you that used to feel alive, the part that used to sense things clearly, the part that used to dream with more courage, the part that used to move with a strange kind of knowing, the part that could feel when something was wrong before anyone said a word, the part that noticed patterns, carried wisdom, created beauty, solved problems, understood people, and reached for God with a purity that life tried to bury. That part is not dead, but it has been covered by survival, covered by disappointment, covered by emotional exhaustion, covered by years of trying to be acceptable to people who did not know what God placed inside you, covered by seasons where you had to keep going, even when your spirit was quietly breaking. And God is saying, we need to talk, because you have started confusing the covering with the condition. You think the gift is gone because it has been quiet. You think the fire is gone because it has been low. You think the calling is gone because the path has been unclear. You think the sensitivity is gone because you had to numb yourself just to survive. But dormant is not dead. Hidden is not cancelled. Quiet is not absent. Delayed is not denied. And buried is not destroyed when God is the one watching over the seed. This is why the enemy of your focus has fought so hard to keep you distracted. Because if you ever become still enough to hear again, you will remember. You will remember that you were not created to live in constant reaction. You will remember that your life is not just about surviving the week. You will remember that God placed something inside you that the world did not give you, and because the world did not give it, the world cannot take it away. So this first part of the conversation is not here to crush you. It is here to wake up your attention. God wants you to stop calling protection rejection. He wants you to stop calling preparation punishment. He wants you to stop calling distraction normal. He wants you to stop calling a dormant gift a dead one. And before we go any further, let this settle inside you. You are not behind in the way fear told you that you are behind. You are not forgotten in the way pain told you that you are forgotten. You are not empty in the way exhaustion told you that you are empty. Something has been forming in you. Something has been protected in you. Something has been waiting for the right conditions to rise again. And the conversation God started today is not finished. Because next, we have to talk about the version of you heaven remembers, the one you almost forgot, and why the deepest part of this message is not about your mistakes. It is about your readiness. And readiness begins with telling the truth about what has really happened inside you. Because the gift did not disappear in one dramatic moment. It did not vanish in a single mistake. It did not leave because you had a hard season, or because you cried too much, or because you doubted, or because you needed time to heal. It went quiet slowly. It became covered little by little, covered by disappointment, covered by survival, covered by the pressure to be normal in rooms where your spirit was never allowed to breathe, covered by years of having to be strong for people who never asked who was being strong for you. And because it became quiet, you started assuming it was gone. You started thinking maybe you imagined the calling. Maybe you were never that sensitive. Maybe the dreams were just dreams. Maybe the discernment was just anxiety. Maybe the deep knowing you carried as a child was just innocence. Maybe the fire you used to feel was just a phase. But chosen one, listen carefully. Dormant is not dead. A seed under the ground is not dead just because nobody can see the tree yet. A fire under ash is not dead just because the flame is low. A room with the lights turned off is not empty just because you cannot see what is inside it. There is a difference between something that has been destroyed and something that has been waiting for the right conditions to return. And for many chosen ones, the gift becomes dormant when the soul spends too long in survival. You were not designed to live every day bracing for impact. You were not designed to wake up already, defending yourself against the weight of the day. You were not designed to carry everybody's emotions, read every shift in the room, manage every conflict, and still have enough quiet inside to hear the voice of God clearly. So if your gift has felt quiet, do not immediately call yourself broken. There are parts of you that went silent because they were protecting what was sacred. There are parts of you that stepped back because the environment around you was too loud. There are parts of you that stopped speaking because you were surrounded by people who kept mishandling what you shared. There are parts of you that went underground because heaven knew the season was not safe enough for full exposure yet. This is why God wants to talk. Not because he is angry that you became tired, but because he does not want you to confuse tiredness with identity. You are not your exhaustion. You are not your delay. You are not your numb season. You are not the version of you that learned how to survive by lowering the volume of your own soul. There is still a truth carrier in you. There is still a seer in you. There is still a builder in you. There is still a cycle breaker in you. There is still a spiritual warrior in you who has taken hits, lost sleep, cried silent tears, questioned everything, and somehow still did not fully let go of God. That matters. The part of you that still believes, even faintly, is evidence that the gift is not dead. The part of you that still feels pulled toward purpose, even when you feel tired, is evidence that the calling is not gone. The part of you that still gets uncomfortable around false things, shallow things, empty things, and toxic things is evidence that your discernment is still breathing. And this is where you must stop calling sensitivity a curse. You were not too sensitive. You were sensitive without protection. You were not too deep. You were deep in places where people only knew how to live on the surface. You were not too intense. You were carrying weight without language, vision without support, and calling without confirmation. God is not trying to remove your sensitivity. He is trying to sanctify it. He is trying to teach it where to open, where to close, where to speak, where to be silent, where to pour, and where to walk away without guilt. This is why some things had to slow down, because an unprotected gift can become a wound. A gift without boundaries can become exhaustion. A gift without obedience can become confusion. A gift without stillness can become noise. So when God says, "We need to talk today," he is not only talking about your mistakes, he is talking about your capacity. And that is the part many people miss. They think God wants to talk because they failed. They think God wants to talk because they are in trouble. They think God wants to talk because heaven is disappointed. But what if this conversation is not happening because you are being rejected? What if this conversation is happening because you are being prepared to carry more? What if the correction is not the end of the story, but the doorway into the next level of responsibility? What if God is not calling you into a courtroom? What if he is calling you into a commissioning room? That changes everything. Because in a courtroom, you stand there waiting to be condemned. But in a commissioning room, you stand there because something is being placed on your life. In a courtroom, your past is the focus. But in a commissioning room, your assignment is the focus. In a courtroom, the question is, what did you do wrong? But in a commissioning room, the question is, what are you ready to carry now? And I sense the Father saying, I did not call you here to shame you. I called you here because there is more in you than what your last season allowed you to show. Let that land. God is not ignoring your pain. He saw it. He saw the nights you kept going with no one clapping. He saw the moments you almost gave up, but chose to breathe through one more day. He saw when you stayed kind after betrayal tried to make you cruel. He saw when you protected people who never protected your name. He saw when you wanted to explain yourself, but something in you said, be still. None of that was wasted. But now, the conversation has changed. Before, The question was, can you survive the wilderness? Now the question is, can you come out of the wilderness without carrying the wilderness as your identity? Because some chosen ones escape the storm, but they keep living as if the storm is still chasing them. They leave the painful place, but keep the posture of defense. They receive new opportunities, but still think like someone who expects rejection. They meet sincere people, but still test them through the wound of those who were not sincere. And God is saying, this is what we need to talk about. Not because He is blaming you for being wounded, because He is inviting you to stop letting the wound lead. Moses had to face this. He was called, but hesitant. He was chosen, but afraid of his own voice. He had an assignment, but he also had insecurity. And God did not cancel him because he trembled. God met him in the trembling and gave him instruction. That is important for you. Your fear does not automatically disqualify you. Your hesitation does not automatically mean you are rebellious. Your trembling does not mean you are not chosen. Sometimes trembling means you understand the weight of what God is asking. But there is a moment when fear must stop being the leader. It can be present, but it cannot sit on the throne. It can speak, but it cannot make the decision. It can warn you, but it cannot become your God. And that is part of readiness. God is not asking you to feel fearless before you obey. He is asking you to stop making fear the final authority. You can move with trembling hands. You can obey with a shaking voice. You can take the next step while still feeling the weight of the unknown. Faith is not always loud. Sometimes faith is quiet obedience while your emotions are still catching up. And this is where the deeper revelation begins. The conversation God wants to have with you today is not mainly about what you did wrong. It is about what He is about to trust you with. That is why things have been shifting. That is why certain connections no longer feel the same. That is why some doors closed with no explanation. That is why you feel both tired and expectant, both heavy and hopeful, both unsure and strangely aware that something is coming. You are not imagining that tension. Something in your life is being rearranged. But the rearranging is not random. God is reorganizing your relationships, your purpose, and your provision. First, He is reorganizing relationships. This may be the most painful part, because you are loyal. You do not release easily. You try to understand people. You try to give another chance. You try to see the good. And there is beauty in that. But there is also danger when loyalty becomes agreement with what God is trying to remove. Some people were allowed in your life for a season, but they are not assigned to the next one. Some people could walk with who you were, but they cannot walk with who you are becoming. Some people loved your availability more than they loved your growth. Some people enjoyed your light as long as it never exposed their comfort with darkness. This does not mean you hate them. It means access must be governed by assignment. God is not asking you to become cold. He is asking you to become clear. Because when you keep giving old access to people who are connected to an old version of you, you keep reopening doors God has already been trying to close. And you may feel guilty. You may wonder if you are being selfish. You may ask yourself if you change too much. You may feel the ache of distance and mistake it for disobedience. But hear this: boundaries are not betrayal. Distance is not hatred. Silence is not cruelty. Growth is not arrogance. And peace is not something you have to keep sacrificing just to prove that you have a good heart. God is reorganizing relationships because your next season requires clean agreement. Not perfect people. Not people who always understand everything, but people who do not need you to shrink so they can feel comfortable. Second, God is reorganizing purpose. Your energy has been scattered for too long. You have been touching many things, thinking about many things, worrying about many things, trying to solve many things, and wondering why nothing feels deeply rooted. But there is a difference between being busy and being assigned. There is a difference between doing what is urgent and doing what is holy. There is a difference between movement and obedience. This is one of the reasons you have felt restless. Not because you are ungrateful, not because nothing good exists in your life, but because your spirit knows when your energy is being spent on things that do not carry your true assignment. God is bringing focus back, not by giving you 20 instructions, but by giving you one next yes, one conversation to release, one habit to stop feeding, one door to stop staring at, one act of obedience you have delayed because it felt small. Do not despise the small instruction. Many chosen ones miss the next level because they are waiting for a dramatic command while ignoring the quiet one. They want God to reveal the full map, but God is asking for the next step. They want the whole staircase, but God is lighting the next stone. They want certainty, but God is building trust. And if you are honest, you already know one thing He has been asking from you. Maybe not everything, maybe not the full picture, but one thing. That is where your purpose begins to sharpen again. Not in endless searching, not in comparing yourself to someone else's timeline, not in waiting until you feel completely ready. Purpose sharpens when obedience becomes more important than overthinking. Third, God is reorganizing provision. And provision is not only money. Provision is support. Provision is wisdom. Provision is timing. Provision is strength for the assignment. Provision is the right person with the right word at the right moment. Provision is a door that opens when you stop knocking on the wrong ones. But you must understand this. Provision follows assignment, not panic. When fear leads, you chase everything that looks like a solution. You say yes too quickly. You attach to opportunities that drain your spirit. You try to force outcomes because waiting feels unsafe. But when assignment leads, you begin to recognize the difference between a door and a distraction. Not everything that opens is from God. Not everything that pays is provision. Not everything that looks like progress is alignment. Sometimes the enemy does not stop you by closing doors. Sometimes he distracts you by opening the wrong ones. That is why discernment matters now. God is not trying to keep you in lack. He is trying to teach you how to receive without panic, choose without desperation, and move without selling your peace for temporary relief. For those entering this season, provision will not just be about getting more. It will be about becoming aligned enough to recognize what is truly assigned, because the wrong opportunity can cost more than a closed door. The wrong relationship can drain more than loneliness. The wrong yes can delay more than waiting. So God is not just blessing you, He is training your discernment so the blessing does not become another burden. This is the commissioning. This is the deeper reason for the conversation. God is not just trying to comfort the part of you that is tired. He is calling forward the part of you that must lead. Not lead from ego, not lead from performance, not lead from needing to be seen, but lead from obedience, clarity, humility, and spiritual weight. Esther had to understand this. She was hidden before she was revealed, positioned before she was used, prepared before the moment demanded courage. Her visibility was not for vanity, it was for assignment. And chosen one, this is why your hidden season has mattered. You thought you were being overlooked, but you were being positioned. You thought you were being delayed, but you were being strengthened. You thought you were losing access, but you were being protected from rooms that could not honor what God was forming in you. You thought silence meant absence, but silence was the place where God was building a voice that would not need the crowd's permission. And now the question is not, did God forget me? The question is, am I willing to become the version of me that the answer requires? Because the blessing you asked for may require a calmer nervous system, a cleaner circle, a stronger no, a deeper yes, a quieter spirit, a sharper mind, a healed relationship with visibility, a willingness to be misunderstood without running back to old patterns for comfort. This is why the gift must wake up in order, not in chaos, not in striving, not in emotional desperation. In order. God-given capacity returns best in an atmosphere of obedience, stillness, and alignment. And maybe that is why the old ways have stopped working for you. The distractions do not satisfy you like they used to. The noise feels heavier. The shallow conversations feel emptier. The constant scrolling, the constant reacting, the constant searching for something outside yourself to calm what is happening inside yourself, it does not hold you anymore. Because your spirit is asking for something deeper than escape. It is asking for restoration. And restoration is not just getting back what was lost. In the deeper sense, restoration means being made whole, being brought into completion, being returned to proper order, not just patched up enough to keep surviving, but rebuilt enough to carry what comes next. That is what God is doing. He is not simply giving you your old fire back. He is returning it with wisdom. He is not simply waking up your gift. He is waking it up with boundaries. He is not simply opening your eyes. He is teaching you how to see without being overwhelmed by everything you notice. He is not simply calling you forward. He is making sure you do not abandon yourself on the way there. So when God says, "We need to talk today," this is not a small conversation. It is not only about one habit. It is not only about one person. It is not only about one delay. It is about the whole structure of your next season. Who has access? What gets your attention? Where your obedience begins? How your gift wakes up? Why your provision must align with purpose? And whether you are willing to let God correct what He intends to use. Because correction is not rejection. Pruning is not punishment. Stillness is not abandonment. Delay is not denial. And commissioning is not comfort without responsibility. This is the sacred tension you are standing in now. You are being comforted and challenged at the same time. You are being healed and prepared at the same time. You are being protected and pushed forward at the same time. That is why this feels different. A message can comfort you and leave you the same, but a conversation with God changes what you can no longer pretend not to know. And now that you have heard this much, the next part must become practical. Because if God is reorganizing your relationships, your purpose, and your provision, then you need more than emotion. You need a way to respond. You need a way to know what to release, what to protect, and what to obey next. And that is where many chosen ones get stuck. They feel the message. They recognize the truth. They even cry when it hits the hidden place. But when the moment comes to act, fear rises again. The fear of being seen. The fear of succeeding. The fear of becoming someone people can no longer control. The fear of carrying the very thing they prayed for. So next we have to talk about the response. Because God has started the conversation, but your next yes is how you answer. And this is where the conversation becomes personal, because it is possible to feel the truth, recognize the message, even cry when it touches the hidden place, and still walk away unchanged if you never give God a response. Not a dramatic response, not a perfect response, not a public performance, a real one, a quiet yes. A yes that does not need to understand the whole path before it obeys the next step. A yes that stops arguing with the thing God has already made clear. A yes that says, "Father, I do not have all the answers, but I will stop pretending I did not hear you." So let this become practical now. There are 3 questions of alignment that every chosen one must face after a conversation like this. The first question is simple, but it may touch something deep. What has God already shown me that I keep negotiating with? Not what are you confused about? Not what are you still waiting for? Not what do you need 5 more confirmations about? What has He already shown you? Because many times, the problem is not that God has not spoken. The problem is that His instruction was not the one your comfort wanted to hear. He may have shown you that a connection is no longer healthy. He may have shown you that a door is closed. He may have shown you that a habit is weakening your spirit. He may have shown you that a certain version of you cannot come into the next season, and because it hurt, you called it unclear. Because it required courage, you called it complicated. Because it meant release, you asked for another sign. But chosen one, clarity does not always become stronger through more signs. Sometimes clarity becomes stronger through obedience. The second question is this: what keeps draining my focus while feeding my fear? This matters because not every distraction looks like rebellion. Some distractions look like responsibility. Some distractions look like loyalty. Some distractions look like staying informed. Some distractions look like being available. Some distractions look like thinking, processing, analyzing, and replaying the same situation until your spirit is exhausted. But if something keeps making you reactive, if something keeps making you anxious, if something keeps pulling you away from prayer, peace, discernment, and obedience, then it deserves to be questioned. God is not asking you to live disconnected from people. He is asking you to stop giving sacred access to things that keep stealing sacred attention. The third question is this: what one obedient step can I take before I feel fully ready? Not 10 steps, not the whole map, one step. Because the next yes is often small enough for pride to ignore, but powerful enough for heaven to honor. It may be one conversation you stop chasing, one boundary you stop apologizing for, one door you stop staring at, one habit you stop feeding, one act of courage you have delayed because it felt too small to matter. But small obedience is not small when God is in it. A small yes can break a long pattern. A small release can create room for a major restoration. A small surrender can become the first stone on a path you could not see before. And this is where many chosen ones must face something they do not always admit. Sometimes you are not afraid of failing anymore. Sometimes you are afraid of what will happen if it actually works. You prayed for the door, but part of you fears the room. You asked for visibility, but part of you fears being seen. You asked for provision, but part of you fears responsibility. You ask God to use you, but part of you wonders if you can handle the weight of being trusted. That fear does not make you weak. It means you understand that the next season has weight. People who do not understand weight rush into rooms with no reverence. But those who have been formed in hidden places often tremble before they step forward, not because they are faithless, but because they know this is not a game. Still, fear cannot be the final voice. Fear can sit in the room, but it cannot hold the pen. Fear can describe the risk, but it cannot write the decision. Fear can remind you of what hurt you, but it cannot be allowed to define what God is doing now. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to carry more. You are allowed to stop shrinking so other people do not feel challenged. You are allowed to become someone your old environment does not know how to control. You are allowed to protect what God is building in you. And you do not owe an apology for becoming who you were always being prepared to become. But there is another layer to this, because sometimes the reason you feel blocked is not only emotional. Sometimes your spirit is willing, but your mind feels crowded. Your heart wants to trust, but your thoughts keep racing. Your calling is alive, but your focus feels scattered. Your gift is still inside you, but the inner atmosphere is noisy. That is why restoration must touch the whole person. Spirit, mind, body, attention, memory, imagination, desire, discipline. For years, many chosen ones have lived in survival mode. And survival mode teaches the mind to scan for danger before it listens for direction. It teaches the body to brace before it receives. It teaches the soul to prepare for disappointment before it can recognize favor. So when we talk about a dormant gift waking up, we are not only talking about emotion, we are talking about the conditions that help a person become still enough, focused enough, and receptive enough to hear what God has been trying to say. This is why I want to mention something carefully. There is a difference between chasing a miracle and supporting the vessel that must carry one. Prayer matters, obedience matters, healing matters, discipline matters. Nothing replaces your walk with God. But sometimes a tool arrives at the right time to support what God is already doing inside you. There is a 7-minute audio track called The Genius Song, designed around brain entrainment and gamma brainwave activation. Gamma is often connected with focus, learning, intuition, creative insight, and the kind of flow state where the mind feels clear instead of scattered. And I want to frame this honestly. This is not magic. It is not a replacement for prayer. It is not a shortcut around obedience. It is not something you use so you can avoid the real conversation God is having with you. But for the chosen one who feels like their mind has been living under fog, for the one who remembers being sharper, clearer, more creative, more sensitive to divine timing, and more alive inside, this may support the very thing we have been talking about. A God-given capacity that did not die. A gift that went dormant. A mind that has been crowded by survival, but can be trained back toward clarity. The way it works is simple. You put on headphones and listen for 7 minutes a day. The audio is designed to help guide the brain toward gamma activity, not through effort, not through complicated rituals, not through forcing yourself to think your way into peace, but through sound. And for some people, that simplicity matters, because they have tried long routines. They have tried to force stillness. They have tried to hold everything together with willpower. But what they needed was not more pressure. They needed a way to become receptive again. One teacher in Texas described feeling like her mind had been running at a fraction of its real capacity. After using the 7-minute track consistently, she said ideas began returning more naturally, and decisions she had postponed for months suddenly became clearer. I do not share that as a promise that every person's experience will be the same. I share it because it speaks to what many chosen ones understand deeply. Sometimes the gift is still there. It just needs the right atmosphere to rise again. Usually, advanced brain training tools and biofeedback sessions can become expensive quickly. Some people spend hundreds of dollars for sessions or thousands for at-home devices. The Genius Song was created as a simple digital audio track that can be used at home. The regular price is $49, but for those who feel led to explore it through this message, it is available for $39, along with the bonuses included on the official page. And there is a money-back guarantee, so this does not need to be approached with pressure or panic. If you feel led to explore it, use the link in the description and pinned comment. Be careful not to search randomly, because there are imitation pages and ordinary audio tracks using similar names. The official link is there so you can receive the correct version, the bonuses, and the guarantee. And then come right back to the heart of this message. Because a tool can support your clarity, but your yes still belongs to you. A sound can help quiet the noise, but it cannot obey for you. A practice can support your focus, but it cannot surrender the thing God told you to release. That part is sacred. That part is between you and the Father. So right now, do this inwardly. You do not need to move. You do not need to perform anything. Simply picture a quiet table inside your spirit. No crowd, no pressure, no shame. Just you and God. On that table, place the one thing you have been calling unclear, even though deep down you know God has already touched it. Place the relationship you keep trying to revive, if God has been asking you to release it. Place the distraction you keep defending, if it has been draining your attention. Place the fear of being seen, if it has been making you hide from the very future you prayed for. And now, in your spirit, imagine God placing one small instruction on that same table. Not the whole map, not every detail, one next step. Let your soul say this quietly. I do not need the whole path to give God my next yes. Let that sentence settle. I do not need the whole path to give God my next yes. Because this is how the conversation turns into transformation. Not when you understand everything. Not when fear disappears. Not when everyone approves. Not when the circumstances become perfect. But when you give God a real yes in the place where you used to negotiate. Father, for the chosen one listening right now, let this message land with peace and not panic. Let correction feel like mercy, not shame. Let every false burden become visible. Let every draining attachment lose its power. Let every delayed promise be seen through the eyes of preparation, not rejection, and let every dormant gift begin to wake in the order you designed. Restore clarity where confusion has been loud. Restore courage where fear has been leading. Restore discernment where distraction has been normal. Restore tenderness where pain created walls. Restore focus where survival scattered the mind. Restore the fire, but return it with wisdom. Restore the gift, but return it with boundaries. Restore the voice, but return it with humility. Restore the dream, but return it with obedience. And for the chosen one who has felt hidden, remind them that hidden does not mean forgotten. For the chosen one who has felt delayed, remind them that delayed does not mean denied. For the chosen one who has felt quiet inside, remind them that quiet does not mean empty. For the chosen one who has been afraid of the next season, remind them that you do not call without equipping. You are not being called into a courtroom. You are being called into a commissioning room. You are not standing before God as someone He is finished with. You are standing before Him as someone He is still forming, still restoring, still correcting, still covering, still preparing, and still calling. May you receive the courage to release what cannot come with you. May you receive the wisdom to recognize what is truly assigned to you. May you receive the peace to stop chasing what God has already closed. May you receive the focus to protect the gift that is waking up again. May you receive the humility to obey small instructions. May you receive the strength to be seen without becoming addicted to approval. May you receive the grace to walk forward without needing everyone to understand. And may the next yes you give God become the first step into the season you were quietly being prepared for all along. If this message spoke to you, comment, "My next yes belongs to God," not as a performance, as a small agreement, as a marker, as a way of saying, "I heard the conversation and I am not walking away unchanged." Chosen one, God did not say, "We need to talk today," because He is done with you. He said it because He loves you too much to let confusion lead you. He said it because your next season requires alignment. He said it because what is inside you is not dead. It is waking up, and now your answer begins.